This channel and video is sponsored by Ratchet Clothing. Go check out their many styles. I'll put a link down in the description to this video. In 2013, someone made a miscalculated decision. The decision was made by a guy and his wife, and it involved them taking issue with their child's teacher. This is a common issue that some parents experience. However, this teacher in question happened to be the daughter of Lucchese Boss Vic Amuso. The bad decision makers were Mr. and Mrs. Joe DeCandia. And Joe DeCandia is the owner of Lenny's Clam House Bar in Howard Beach. And this is a business that he inherited from his father, Joe Sr., who passed away in 2002. This is a photo of Joe Sr. and Frank Sinatra Jr. Coincidentally, Joe Sr. was an associate to the Lucchese family and happened to be close to Vic Amuso. But as the saying goes, in some cases, the apple falls far from the tree. The mistake that Joe DeCandia and his wife made was instead of discussing their grievance with the teacher, they decided to write a letter to the school. As a result, the school not only spoke to the teacher about this issue, but they put the letter in her teacher's folder. Surprisingly, Joe DeCandia, being from Howard Beach, knew better than to pull a move like that. And several people were in agreement that he felt since Vic was away doing life in prison, he had nothing to worry about. He was right in his thinking that Vic was away doing life in prison, but what he failed to realize was that Vic's Bugatti was out in the street. Someone was sent to Lenny's Clam Bar to talk to Joe DeCandia and tell him that either he or his wife, or the both of them, need to get up to that school and get that letter out of that folder. So realizing the predicament he was in, he did just that, and he had the letter removed. There's nothing more of value to add to that part of the story. But before I add my own opinion about what took place afterwards, I first want to discuss something. I realized that a lot of stories I shared could be looked at objectively, as if I'm always looking like I'm the smartest guy in the crowd or the only one making the right decisions. And I'm not talking about the opinion of the small-minded trolls because they're irrelevant. I'm just speaking in general. Recently, I've had this discussion with two different people, both who know me and the guys in my former life. And basically, they both had the same response. Look who you're talking about. These are not the sharpest tools in the shed. Okay, now that that's addressed. Back then, my way of thinking was that Joe DeCandia got off easy, and he was very lucky only to get a warning. But because of his actions, in my book, his restaurant was off limits. Naturally, Vic's daughter was on the same page with me. At times, there was a little flirting going on between the both of us, and her brother-in-law and my good friend Joey DiBenedetto suggested to me that I should date her. Although I had made some poor dating decisions up to that point, I knew better. After all, she was the boss's daughter. So I kept things between us respectful and on a friendship level. Anyway, unfortunately, certain members of her family, who shall remain nameless, continued to dine at Lenny's Clam Bar, which I was never able to wrap my head around. Going to that restaurant meant putting money in Joe DeCandia's pocket, and I didn't want to reward him for his disrespect. Listening to myself say that now sounds crazy, but that's just one example of Cosa Nostra's warped mentality, or my own back then for that matter. After all this took place, one afternoon, I went to go see if Sally Bread was at a gambling spot that was in close proximity to Lenny's Clam Bar. He happened not to be there that day, but I did run into some Gambinos that were in the restaurant's parking lot. We spoke for a few minutes and they invited me to join them. I respectfully declined and I explained to them what took place with Vic's daughter and the owner of the restaurant. They quietly listened to the story, they said their goodbyes to me, and they walked into the restaurant. Maybe my expectations for that life were too high, because I wasn't only surprised, I was disappointed. I figured after hearing the story, they would choose another restaurant to have their lunch in. In their defense, maybe they were meeting other people there, or they were friendly with the owner. I don't know what the answer is. Some people watching this may feel I was kissing Vic's daughter's ass to score points with my boss. That wasn't the case. In all honesty, whether people believe it or not, had that been Anthony Guzzo's daughter, Big John's daughter, or any other one of our friends, I would have done the same. I think this story and life in general boils down to a saying that my mother's Uncle Angelo would often say. If you expect people to think like you and do what you would do, you're going to be highly disappointed in this life. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, you could do that as well. By subscribing, you'll get notified every time I post a new video. And if you think friends and family might enjoy this video, I'd appreciate it if you share it. Thank you. Till the next time. You can subscribe to the Sit Down News blog at sitdownnews.com, and I appreciate everyone who has subscribed. Thank you. Well, just another example in the mob you never knew about. If you would like to subscribe to this channel, you could do so down below. If you would like to subscribe to my other channel, Unlimited Substance Podcast, I'll add a link in the description to this video.